Yo, what is up guys, it's Pedro here, and in today's video I'll be talking about a report from an ESPN reporter that the Washington Commanders could be interested in running back Nick Chubb. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell as well so you never miss a video. So this is going to be a quicker video, but did want to talk about the rumor here, or not even just a report from Jeremy Fowler. He suggested the Commanders could be in the market for running back Nick Chubb. Shout out to Brandon, Jaden Daniels MVP on Twitter. Make sure you guys go ahead and give him a follow. But he said, this is the quote, "There are some teams out there that could be in the market for one. You know, the Commanders or the Bears come to mind. They could be looking for an extra back at some point." So I guess what I said earlier was right, that they could be in the market for running back. But Nick Chubb specifically, still on the market, a star, big name. Not, he's not the same player. He's not a star right now. He's not the same player he was 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. He's definitely not. Last year was pretty bad for him in terms of, the level of football he did play. I will say, he's coming off a major injury. So that definitely played a big factor into his play. But that's also, big, maybe deterring factor into why you would sign him. Just looking at him, 5'11", 227 pounds. He's 29, so will be basically 30 once the season starts. And we know the type of player he was in his prime, like 2019 to 2022. He was a top 5 back in football for basically all those years. I mean, 2022, which is a couple years ago, had 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. And, better receiving back, that year than most other years. Had 240 receiving yards and a touchdown. Then in 2023, played in only 2 games, had a really bad injury. I think it was an ACL and some other things. I know he tore his ACL in college once or twice, so he has a lot of injury issues. But in that year, he played in 2 games, 28 carries, 170 yards, averaged 6.1 yards a carry, which is pretty good. This past year, played, midway through the season, closer to the end of it, and played in 8 games, 100 carries, 332 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He had the long of 19 yards. It's just, 5 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. So, he still produced, but it's just, I don't know. He's not the same player. He's, getting up there in age. It would obviously be a 1-year deal, but I just don't really know what you're getting there with Nick Chubb and the upside of it right now when you have a guy similar to him in Brian Robinson, who's more of a bruiser, type of running back, and Nick Chubb is, like that, is a bruiser type of running back. Obviously, Nick Chubb in his prime, way better than Brian Robinson. But at this point, I don't know if he is. Maybe with a full year off, after playing a year, or playing half the season last year, can help him out. I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for the Commanders when, like I said, they got Brian Robinson in the mix. You have Chris Rodriguez, who I actually like, and again, another bruising type of running back. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, isn't like a super quick twitch guy. He can break tackles, like these other guys too. So again, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to sign Nick Chubb right now with, the state of the Commanders running back room. It's not great. The Commanders running back room is not great, but I just don't think adding Nick Chubb is really going to do much for you, is really going to improve it much. But, knock on wood, hopefully no one gets injured. But let's say one of the guys gets injured, maybe Brian Robinson or one, a bruising type of running back that they have right now, then maybe signing Nick Chubb would make more sense. But at this point, like I said, I don't think it makes sense. Maybe a guy like J.K. Dobbins makes a little bit more sense, a quicker guy that, had a pretty good year last year before he got hurt. So for me, a guy like J.K. Dobbins would make more sense, a guy that has a little bit more potential, a guy that's younger, so maybe you see a little bit more of a future with him versus a guy like Nick Chubb, which at max is going to be a year, maybe another year after that, if you sign him to another 1-year deal. So that's kind of my take on the whole situation. I'm trying to think of any connections they could have on the roster on the roster. Anthony Lynn's their running backs coach. Don't think he worked with Nick Chubb before. Cliff didn't work with, Nick Chubb before. And, Dan Quinn hasn't. So I don't think there's a lot of connections, like player-wise. I'm trying to think of Browns players we have, and I really can't think of many. I'm sure there's some if I, really went through it. Just not a lot of connections there to Nick Chubb, so I don't know if it really makes sense. So maybe he was just saying, the Commanders could be, in the market for running back, and Nick Chubb's available, one of the better running backs he believes, and that's why he's linking Nick Chubb to us. That's kind of my takeaway from that. So maybe a better, takeaway from this report would be, all right, what I just said, but then also maybe some other running backs that fit the Commanders a little bit more. Maybe, the report is really, all right, they're interested in, maybe adding to the running back position. I don't know. At this point, I think it's a little bit too late. I think it should have been addressed in the draft, and, maybe it was with, their 7th round pick and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Just made a video about him. I think, he's definitely underrated. I think he has a chance to be a good running back, but, at this point, I don't think they need to go after Nick Chubb, make a late running back signing. If they're going to address the position, I think it should have been done day 1 or day 2 of the draft. They didn't do that. They trust their guys, and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, maybe he was given a day 2 grade or an early day 3 grade, and he just fell so far and they were able to get him and they feel good about that. Again, that's fine, but I think right now the running back situation, it is what it is, and hopefully one of the guys steps up. They have Brian Robinson. Maybe if he has a fully healthy season, he's going to be good, because before his injury last year, I think it was a hamstring, he was playing pretty good football. You got Austin Eckler, who is solid. He's not going to be a star for you, but he was very efficient last year. Jeremy McNichols, good veteran to have in the room. I like Chris Rodriguez. I think he needs to be given more of an opportunity. We'll see if he makes the roster, but I think he should. And then you got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. But yeah, that is it for today's video. A quicker video, but just want to get this out there for y'all. Hopefully you guys are having a good Tuesday. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.